Hey guys, Chris with Plays with Water. This video I want to do something a little different. Now if you have watched my other videos or subscribed to me, you'll see most of them are on redoing a tank or setting up a new tank. And I really like doing those. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do is to, create an environment in a box. So I want to try something different and let's just sit down and talk about a subject. I'm no expert in this subject. This is purely just based off of my research and experience and trial and error. So let's talk about African cichlid aggression. I feel it's probably the number one thing that would turn an individual off to housing cichlids. You can be a very good fish keeper. You keep great husbandry. You're always doing your water changes, cleaning your filters. You're feeding high quality food. Your lighting's right. The volume of water's correct. All that's done properly. But learning how to curb aggression, I feel that's a very frustrating thing to learn. And you got to really like these fish to be able to get past that aggression. Now, I started by keeping Malawi cichlids. I've had this tank for about a year and a half, or this group of fish. This journey's about a year and a half, and now the Tanganyikans. I just set this tank up. I don't know, what has that been, a month and a half ago now. This is really my first try at a Tanganyikan tank, so I'm very fresh and new, learning a lot on this. But I have a pretty good grasp on Malawis. So we're going to mainly focus on them and then maybe talk a little bit about what I've learned and experienced with this tank so far. Now, what's the number one thing that causes aggression with really any fish is the right to mate. So to help reduce that is you keep one sex, either be all female or all male. Now, generally with African cichlids, you're going to want to keep all male because they're the beautiful looking ones. They're the real flashy colored ones. So, okay, you got that down. You're going to house just males. But they're still fighting. They're still angry. Lip locking, torn up fins, fish hiding up in the corner. This probably isn't a great example, but they're all hiding in the corner because they see me and they think they're getting fed. Which they'll get fed after this video. Now, so what else could be causing this aggression? Well, now it depends on what Malawi cichlid you're talking about. But just to make it simple, I'm just going to put them into two groups. You got Mbuna, your smaller rock-dwelling fish, which tend to actually be the more aggressive. And then you got your peacocks and haps. And the reason why I'm putting them in one group is they have very similar temperament. And as this conversation goes on, you'll see more and more why I'm just grouping them together for the purposes of this video. Now, like I said, Mbuna tend to be the much more aggressive of these two families of fish. So, but Mbuna, which means rock dweller, means that, they like to dwell in the rocks, dart around through all these different nooks and crannies. So, maybe it's how your tank's set up that's causing the aggression. Mbuna, it's very easy to remedy, and you just create tons and tons of rock work. They can all pick their little niches, swim through it, lose sight of each other, and all that fun stuff. Now, mind you, I haven't kept Mbuna in a very long time. I've had some here and there throughout my fish keeping journey. So this is just purely based off of what I've watched and read. So now let's get to what I have, peacocks and haplochromis. Initially when I was setting up this tank, they're all on the younger side, so I had a lot of fake floating plant, or just fake plants in there in general to create hiding spots and break up lines of sight. And that was working great when they're all smaller fish. So, but I noticed as they got bigger and bigger, they were fighting a whole hell of a lot, all the time. So, and I didn't like how the fake plants look. If you know any of my other tanks, there's really nothing fake in them. I aim for as naturalistic as I can. So, can't do live plants. I tried it with these. They just wanted nothing to do with them, or wanted too much to do with them, I should say, and just tore them apart. Now, what I ended up realizing was the problem was the dominant fish in the tank were starting to claim territories. There's a nice cave over here hidden with plants. I'm going to claim this spot. Well, I'm going to claim this spot. I'm going to claim this spot. So now whenever any fish swam through that spot in the tank, they would get an ass whooping, for a lack of nicer ways to put it. The tank boss or whatever dominant fish had claimed that territory is now just fighting everything that's coming in. So I started to remove rocks, removed all the fake plants. And as I did this, no one was able to claim these territories. There was a lot less fighting going on in there. So I just eventually got to a point where I just had a few piles of rocks. I would actually even have even less decor in this tank if it wasn't for the catfish that are in there. That'll be for another discussion, but they they need those hiding spots in there. So the way you curb aggression as far as your tank is set up, or scaped rather, is you have very little decor in there, really, at all. Because now they can't claim a spot. It's just a big open water place. As I mentioned, Mbunas like to hang out in the rocks. Most of peacocks and haplochromis are open water swimmers. They just want spaces to swim around and look for food and kind of patrol. If you give them territories, they're going to pick that spot and be like, you know what, this is my spot now. No one's taking it from me. I'm going to fight you to the death for it. So that's another reason what could cause aggression, is how your tank is laid out. So now we're going to get into a third thing that causes aggression. Similar looking fish. One of the joys of doing a Malawi tank is having the spectrum of color. You have reds, orange, blues, there are greens, different patterns, and it's just, that's the whole point of keeping African cichlids, is this reef fish looking freshwater fish. So, but I really like blue fish, or what's easily accessible to me are generally blue peacocks and haplochromis. So, but I'll do one flametail, I'll do one deep water hap, I'll do one sapphire, and you end up having a whole bunch of blue male fish. They're all different species of haps and peacocks, but they're all blue. They're all similar enough where I could see you as a threat now. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of blue fish in this tank. It's a very common color across the different African cichlids. But if they look alike, they're going to see them as a threat, so they're going to attack them. So you want variation in a cichlid tank. You want just across the board different types. Now, getting back to keeping one sex, I actually do have both sexes in this tank. But the way I did it, and the reason why I did it, was some of my haplochromis are female. The haps get big for the most part. They're bigger fish. They're 9, 10, even in some situations over a foot long. Now, a male 10-inch fish will really cause some havoc in your tank. He has no competition from any of the other smaller 6, 7-inch fish. He's going to just dominate that tank. So what I ended up doing was I got single species of females. Like my Venusius is a female cichlid. She's still going to get a decent size. She will hold her own all day, but she's not going to go out pursuing a fight like a male would. My Livingstoni haplochromis, that is also a female. Not quite as beautiful as the male version, but still a nice, big, good-looking fish. And they're just so docile compared to other cichlids having a female in the tank. But what that also does is, this big blue dominant peacock is going to see that fish and not think twice about it. It's completely wrong species. I pay no. They don't even really see it as a female because it's so out of the realm of being able to mate with it. So that's another thing to keep in consideration, is not keeping, like fish. Keep it nice and varied. Now that also brings me to probably the last thing you got to take into consideration when you're trying to battle aggression is numbers. You want lots and lots of fish. Well, I shouldn't put it that way. You want a slightly overstocked to fully overstocked tank. Now what's going to depict ultimately how much you overstock this tank is your husbandry and your filtration, water volume, all that good stuff. I'm not going to go into that. So the more fish you have in there, the less likely one individual is going to get picked out and beaten up by the rest, especially when you're introducing new fish. With these fish, you don't want to introduce just one or two. You want to at least introduce 3 or 4 or more if you can at a clip. Because like I said, if you dump just 1 or 2 fish in there, all the other fish are going to say, hey, who's this new guy? Let's go check him out. Let's go, push him a little bit, test his limits a little bit. But if you put 4 or 5 in there, that new intrigued aggression towards that fish is going to be spread out across 5 fish as opposed to just 1 or 2. So I currently have 18 cichlids in here and then the 3 catfish. So I could easily put in another 10 cichlids, which I might end up doing in the future. I've been doing a whole bunch of other projects. You gotta see what's going on with this coronavirus before I start throwing all this money at buying more cichlids. But it's been it's a number that's been working for me, and it really helps on the water quality of the whole environment for them. So pretty much in a nutshell, Malawi peacock haplochromis, you want to have sparse decorations, a large variety of fish, and all males. That's it in a nutshell, or at least that's what's worked for me. I do see some people like Ben Ochart. He's obviously very big in the African Cichlid scene. He likes using the fake plants from Elite Cichlids, and they're beautiful fake plants. If I had to actually run a fake plant and use that for the rest of a tank, I would definitely go check out Elite Cichlids. They're beautiful. I almost bought some, but he does it. He's very big into getting them small and raising them up and upgrading them from one tank to another. And he has a lot of tanks to be able to, all right, this fish is having a problem in here. I can try it out in this tank. I can try in this tank. He has options. So there's definitely also a school of thought of having a spot for a fish to get away. That hasn't quite worked out in my situation, but it's all what works for you. But that's what's worked for me with Malawi. So now I'd like to kind of touch a little bit of base on what I have found and seen as far as the month and a half now of having a Tanganyikan tank. That time frame isn't really too fair because I have had the 2 frontosas now for, I don't know, we'll call it 9 months now. I was growing them out in a 29-gallon. If you want to go see why, how it got into a 75-gallon, we'll put a link up for the 75-gallon Tanganyika tank build. But so pretty much, real quick, I had 2 frontosas. I started growing them out. They obviously outgrew that 29-gallon. I had the 75-gallon. I was going to put them in there, but now I had all this extra space. I wanted to throw in some other Tanganyikan fish. So I got 2 gold compresseps and 3 Neolamprologus lelupi. I got them local from another fish keeper. It was like in the heat of the whole quarantine thing. Safely made the exchange, got those fish, set this tank up, and kind of set it up just I crammed on research as much as I could and used what I had at the time to set this tank up. Now, the reason why I put a little bit of emphasis on Mbuna and when we're talking about Malawi is A, it's good to know, but B, it leads me to what I have discovered as far as Tanganyika. At least the smaller species of Tanganyikan fish I have, aside from the 2 frontosas, are all generally rock-dwelling fish. So I kind of based it off of if I was setting up a Malawi tank for Mbunas. I kind of did that layout. I kind of do the Frontosas, would kind of pick a spot to go hang out, which they've done, and they appreciate the rock work right now because they're still on the younger side for that species. Everything's rock dwelling or like shell dwellers. That's a big fish to have. That's a Tanganyikan fish. So I'll probably end up throwing in some shells in here. I just gotta get online and order a big order of them to start throwing in there. But they're still aggressive fish, but they're nowhere near, at least from my little bit of experience, as aggressive as the Malawis get. When the Malawis really don't like each other, which doesn't take all that much, is they will start lip locking, causing a scene, and splashing, this big commotion. I'll be over at my computer watching my TV and I just hear bang, bang, splash. I look over and, you know, there's a brawl going on. And here they do quarrel. They definitely quarrel. There's aggression, but I very, very rarely actually see any physical aggression. It's all just getting puffed up and opening their mouths and kind of swarming around each other, you know. But they're much more of a flight than a fight aggression. You got fight here, you got flight here. So it's a little easier as far as stress levels of even just watching it. You really don't want to watch your fish beating each other up. Yeah, that's tough to watch. You want everybody to be healthy, getting along, and so I found these fish to be a lot less aggressive. There's variation is still a key, like it is in Malawi, but more, you still want groups. You can have the diversity, you know, well, not as much diversity as far as the number of species you have, but the amount of each species you can have. In this tank, you want one of every species. So you could have, theoretically, I have about 17, 16 species of cichlids in here. And here I only have 3 species of cichlids. But there's 9 fish, you know, so it's only half the amount of fish in here, but the amount of different species is different. But it's fun to see how the Lelupai all interact with each other. And the two composites, they hate each other. But there's enough room in there where they can kind of have their own spots. The Frontosa, they used to bicker a lot in that 29 gallon. There's plenty of hiding spots for the two of them, but since it was such close quarters, not even that smaller than here, because that 29 gallon is close to 3 feet. This is 4 feet, so I only gain maybe a foot, foot and a half going to a 75 gallon tank. But now because there's more space, they actually hang out together in much more closer proximity, which was it was unexpected to me. So they kind of just hang out together. Sometimes they kind of bicker a little bit when it comes to food, but they generally just both will swim side by side with each other, kind of go, you know, oh, what's over here, what's over here, what's over here? Oh, food, all right, yeah, we'll be a little aggressive towards eating food. Oh, there's no more food. All right, yeah, let's both go back to hanging out over here. Now, Frontos are just slow growers. I haven't really been able to sex them. I assume at least Beetlejuice is a male. Fred might be a female or a male. I mean, there's even just so many different subspecies of the Frontosa. I'm not even really sure which ones I have. So I got to do a little more research on there. Like I said, I just want to touch base on this tank just a little bit from what I've experienced with it. So, all in all, are cichlids achievable? Absolutely. They're a really popular fish. They're very hardy fish. It's just, you got to look into the long term of these fish. A lot of these peacocks and haps, I'm sure the same goes for Tanganyikan fish. They can live for 7-8 years. This is a bit of an investment. It's not like, you know, all right, I got this 30-gallon tank. I'm going to throw a bunch of Rhizosporas and Tetras in there. They're doing great. But at the end of the day, they're only going to live for maybe 2-3 years if you're doing everything really right. That's an old tetra. To have a 2-3-year-old tetra, that's an old tetra. Cichlids, you got to be in it for a bit of the long haul. Especially, you know, just the sheer amount of money you got to spend for a tank large enough to do it properly. The filtration to do it properly. The time and effort to do your water changes, keep your husbandry on track. So, I hope this helps with any maybe aggression questions or issues you're seeing. Feel free to comment and ask me questions. I try to get back to everybody. At this point, I don't have too many followers, so it's very easy for me to, you know, chime in and say, hey, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I've seen. Yes, this is the name of this fish. I'll even, you know, what kind of filters you running. Oh, I'm running a sun on this side and this on this and this. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure to, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to see more of me, and who doesn't, right? I kid. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, guys.